the webinar, and we imagine there'll be a few more who join us shortly. Thanks so much for coming to today's From Generalist to Specialist webinar. You've got myself, Rob, who's going to be organising that, and we've got three others, Annie, another Rob, and also Sarah. So today what we're going to be covering, we're going to be going through three different subjects. That's PE, art and performing arts, and we'll be going through a few resources that you might be able to use in the primary classroom to support you in teaching those specialist subjects. So to start off with, though, always nice to know who you're speaking with. So I'm going to send it over to Annie first, who's going to introduce herself. So Annie, over to you.
Okay, I'm Annie, a consultant with ANZ UK in the East team. I was originally a CRT for about 3 years through us, so I have been to quite a number of schools that you're all working at or have been to as well. I was mainly a generalist teacher, but have done quite a bit of PE and art. So I think it's a good time to sort of make sure everyone feels okay, because I was just as nervous going into specialist classrooms as all you generalist teachers out there. To Rob.
Awesome. Brilliant, thanks Annie, thanks for that. I'm Rob. I've been the East team leader with ANZ UK for about 3 years now, and have been working at ANZ UK for about 6.5 as well. So currently just working with primary schools around the Glen Waverley, Mount Waverley, Camberwell area. I've sort of, my journey with ANZ UK's taken me from secondary schools in the southeast, like down towards Cranbourne, and now I'm sort of focused purely on primary schools just in that inner east area, which is quite strange really, because my background is actually secondary maths teaching, but I've slowly sort of changed what it is that I've been working towards. But yeah, been with ANZ UK for a while now, and still very much enjoy the finding the right teachers for the right schools, and providing those exceptional experiences in education. I'm now going to go over to the other Rob. This might be slightly confusing. So the other Rob, who's going to introduce himself.
It's already slightly confusing for me. I've already put my hand up to wave, and I'm like, oh wait, he's actually talking about someone else. Anyway, as I said, my name's Rob. I work in the Southeast team. I am a recent graduate from Deakin University, so I am PE and performing arts trained. I have done both secondary and primary. I have always loved PE, like in the background, like the background about PE. I was always really into sport, into tennis, basketball mainly, but I watch footy all the time and can't wait for the footy to come back, or Hawthorn. But you know, anyway, yeah, that's me. Yeah, just I'm starting out like recently, and I feel like I've got quite a few really good games I learned at uni and different websites to share with you guys. So yeah.
Awesome, thanks Rob, very well spoken. And we'll finally go over to Sarah, who's going to talk about herself quickly as well.
I'm Sarah Topoulos, and I've been teaching since 2000. Oh, can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Yeah. I'm unmuted.
Nope, you're back to mute.
Classic technology.
Oh no.
Yep.
Talking. Oh, sharing.
Sarah, we can hear you, certainly.
We can hear you.
Oh no. I'll share my webcam. Okay. I'll just can you hear and see me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So my name is Sarah Topoulos, and I started teaching in 2005, which has been, so I've been doing it a long time. But I started in 2006 teaching performing arts when a primary school asked me if I was interested in doing that, and I had a music and dance background, so I said sure. So I've just been on this long journey, finding resources that I really enjoy teaching, doing different PDs, and yeah, here I am. And I different schools done primarily in the northern and southeast suburbs. I've moved around a little bit and just moving houses, but yeah, and at the moment I'm just doing CRT work. Yeah, and I really enjoy that. I really love teaching performing arts, probably because I did it over the years. And yes, I've got some lessons to share with you today. Hopefully they'll inspire you to use.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you've been fantastic since you. I think I registered you midway through last year. Yeah, and you've been an awesome addition to the staff, as have you, Rob. So thanks for all the work you've done, and also what you're going to provide to other teachers today. So just a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to be just touching on and the order of things, I suppose. So first of all, we'll be doing, Rob is going to go through three PE resources, and then you've got an opportunity to, I suppose, ask Rob any questions. Now, the best way to do that is send your questions through on the questions sidebar. I'll be trying to answer those as we go. But if you want to put your hand up as well, we will try and go to you at the end of Rob's 3 activities if there are any specific questions you want to ask. We'll be doing the exact same process with Annie. So Annie's going to go through 3 art resources. And again, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them through in the questions area, and I'll either try to answer them or pose them to Annie later on. And then we'll do the exact same with Sarah, who's going to go through the performing arts. There hopefully will be an opportunity for people to share their own resources at the end as well, if we've got time. We plan to finish this between 3 and 3:30, but we're not exactly sure how long it's going to run. But yeah, that's the order for today. So the first thing we'll do, though, is actually ask you all a question. So I'm going to put a poll up now and just ask you, first of all, are you comfortable covering PE lessons? So are you comfortable teaching PE in a primary school? So I'm just going to ask that poll to you now, if you can just answer either yes or no. I'll just give it another 10 seconds or so on that. All right, fantastic. So I'm just going to share the results with everyone now. Once it loads, excellent. So we've got about exactly 2/3 of people here are comfortable teaching PE in a primary school, and we've got a third who aren't at the moment. Hopefully with Rob's 3 resources, that'll be 0% are not confident, but also those 67% that are comfortable taking PE at the moment. Hopefully these 3 resources and ideas that Rob is about to share with you will add to your repertoire of activities. Okay, so I'm just going to move back onto the slideshow where I can get that up. There we go. So Rob, if you want to take it off and start discussing your first activity.
No worries. All right. So with PE, it's quite simple, really. It goes between 3 different stages. At the start, you have your warm-up game. Then you've got like your main activities. You have your main games inside of the lesson, and then you have your cool down. Now, the cool down's not always necessary, but let's say it's like a hot day, or you feel like they've worked really hard, like maybe they've done some fitness testing, stuff like that. A cool down is really good just to keep them active, but also, yeah, keeping them engaged instead of just talking throughout the rest of the lesson. So I'm starting with the warm-up game. So a simple warm-up game, the number game. So what it is pretty much the students spread out in the space. So this could be any space really, like a gym or just some part of the oval, basketball court, anything like that. So while they're spread out, they you can start by, you could either play some music or you could just get them to start moving around. Then after like maybe 20, 30 seconds, you blow your whistle, and then you either put your fingers up or you can just shout out a number. So that number could be 3. Once you say that number, then students have to get into groups of 3. Now, as it's a warm-up game, we don't really want people to go out or anything like that because then you're not really being physically active. So what we do instead is just say, do maybe 5 jumping jacks on the spot, or maybe 5 star jumps, 5 different sorts of activities that you could do, and then they could go back into the game. So it's those simple things to keep them active and get them really warmed up for the main activities to come. Another thing you can also do is, actually, no, don't worry. That's all I need to say. Also, the reference. So I got 2 of the activities I'm showing you from the physicaleducationgames.com. They're really great to see, really games that you could use in your warm-ups, in your main activities, stuff like that. So it's definitely a really good resource for you to use. So if you want to go to the next activity, Rob.
Awesome, yeah, absolutely.
So the next activity is a cool down game. So it's a game called Traffic Lights. Now, as it's a cooldown game, we're not getting them to move all too much. So this is how this game is played. Everyone is standing in a line. You have your 3 lights. You have your red light, your green light, and your yellow light. How this works is, if it's a green light, you take 1 step forward. If it's a red light, you take 1 step back. If it's a yellow light, you stay still. And how this works is if the people do the wrong movement, stuff like that, they could be out, or you could do some sort of physical activity to get them back in. It's up to you when it comes to that sort of stuff. The main idea about this game, as it is with most cooldowns, is to just keep them active while also not exerting too much of their energy, because by this point of the lesson, they might be quite tired. So this is a really good game to play from grades 2 to 8. Again, you might be able to do it even earlier. It's up to you guys. The reason for adaptations, for like the higher year levels, you could add extra colors into the lights. So for example, you could add a white light or a black light. And for that, you might get them to turn to the left. And then they have to do the extra movements on top of that. So white light, turn left, then green light, you'd go forward in a different direction. So it's these types of adaptations to add a little bit of extra thinking for the students to do in those later years. And it's also something you could adapt on if you play this game often enough in the same year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that one, Rob. I did something similar when I was teaching, actually. And sometimes what you do, I would stand at the front of the class and I'd be like, okay, touch your head, and everyone would touch their head, touch your knees, touch your hips or whatever. But then the idea being that you would make it a little bit more confusing by you would give different instructions to what you were doing. So you might say, okay, touch your knees and touch your head, and just try and confuse them that way and make them either follow you visually or follow you verbally, and whichever one they're trying to do. And that's a nice way of also sort of, I suppose, making it a bit more challenging, and also making people drop out so you eventually get a winner. But there's so I mean, there's so much freedom in what you can do with a game like that one. You can just add in so many different things, and even get the kids to do it, I guess, as well, and then come up with their own ideas, so they put their own spin on the game.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not like, for example, if someone goes out really early, instead of them just getting to sit down for the entire activity, you can get them to help you out. Maybe they get to choose the light this time. Like, it's easy ways to get them in and really being active instead of just sitting down and talking for the rest of the lesson.
Fantastic. Awesome. And we'll move on to your last one now.
So my final game, as you'll see, is a game called Chuck the Chicken. So obviously, I like to use this with a rubber chicken because rubber chickens are awesome, but I could also use it with a ball, or you could use it with pretty much anything, like, football or soccer ball, anything like that. So this is how the game works. You have 2 teams. You have your chasing team and your scoring team. Now, both these teams will be swapping over constantly throughout the game. So this is how you start. One person at the start of the game is holding the chicken. That person has to yell out, "Chuck the chicken," and they throw it. Once they throw it, the chasing team will have to go and grab the chicken. Once the chasing team has the chicken, they do over and under. So they're over the top of their heads, then underneath their legs, over the top of the head, underneath their legs, and continue doing that until the last person gets the rubber chicken. Once that happens, starts again. Chuck the chicken. They chuck it. Now, for the scoring team, this is how that's done. Once they've chucked the chicken, then everyone comes together into either a circle or really clustered up together. Obviously, with the coronavirus stuff, you might not be able to don't want everyone to literally be a sardine these days, but you can just get them into a circle. Once you do that, one person runs around the entire team. Once they get back to the start, that's 1 point. So there's 2 ways you could do it. You could either have that person continually run around making heaps of points, or you could get to make sure everyone's getting involved, get them back into the group, then one other person goes, 1 point, then the next person goes. And you continue doing that until the chasing team says, "Chuck the chicken," and you swap around. So that's the entire game. It's a really fun game to play, like, after you've done maybe some drills or something like that. It's a really good game to focus on their throwing skills and also their teamwork skills, because teamwork is a really underrated thing in PE. It's not just about skill building and physical activity. It's about working as a team, and in later years, it's really important they have that skill to do multiple different other subjects. So, yeah.
I love that game, and hopefully those diagrams on the right hand side sort of help explain it a little bit. I am aware that the wording for some reason has become quite blurry. I don't know why, but if you have a look on the handout section on the right hand side, this game will be it will be described in the handout, and that version shouldn't be blurry at all. I don't know why that's happened, and I assume Rob, if they don't have a chicken to hand, you can use a different name or use a different item.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Exactly. Just you can throw a rugby ball, throw a cricket ball, well, not a cricket ball, throw a tennis ball, any of those sorts of things. So yeah, it can
Awesome.
work with anything, really.
All right, fantastic, brilliant. Well, thanks for those 3 activities, Rob. That was awesome. I'm just going to give people a chance just to send through any questions they may have. Just a big thank you to Amy Jones, who has actually given us a link to quite a few online resources, and I'll share that link with you all in the chat area now. So if you want to see an area where you might be able to get some resources, if you just follow the link in the chat I've just sent you, I'm sure there's quite a few resources on there. So thanks very much for that, Amy. Now we've got a hand up from Lisa Crosby. So Lisa, I'm going to unmute you, and if you've got a question or an idea that you'd like to send through, please do. You're unmuted now, Lisa.
Oh, hi guys. I've used resources from an organisation called Blue Earth a lot, and they have a website that is really designed for a whole lot of skill building, team building, etc. And you can print off a bunch of warm-ups and cool downs, and you know it's absolutely marvellous. I can see Rob nodding. Yeah. So Blue Earth, it's BLU. I think it's just ARTH. I'm not sure. BlueEarth.com. And they're happy to share anything. So yeah, check them out.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Lisa. Much appreciated. And Gillian Mays, you've also got your hand up, so I'm going to go to you now. So hopefully that's what you want, and we'll see if you've got a question or you've got something you'd like to share as well. So Gillian, you should be unmuted now.
No question. I'm sorry, I clicked that accidentally.
Okay, no worries, Gillian. That happens to the best of us. All good. I'll mute you again now. But if you do have something to say, please send it through. Now, let me just see if there's any other questions on here. So, Rob, this is a question from Alicia. So, what tips do you have for someone who knows how to teach sport but cannot model anything because they have terrible hand-eye coordination? What would be your advice for that one?
The best thing to do is to look for students who, even though you may not know the students, if through the warm-up game or something, you can find some students who really have those skills to already do those sorts of things. Because in a class, you have a variation of skill levels, and usually you can get someone to help you demonstrate. That's the best way I like to do it, because me showing them is being like, because the students think, oh yeah, like you can do it, but I can't do it. But if you show them that one of their own can do it, then they can be like, okay, yeah, I really think I can get this skill down. So getting someone else to come and demonstrate is really useful.
Fantastic, Rob. That's awesome. Beautiful answer. We had someone else who's also offered up an answer using an iPad and showing a video. That would have been my go-to. But I think the students is using the students is a great way. As you mentioned, it's showing the other classmates that they can do. If you show a video of like Michael Phelps swimming, I can understand some of them are like, well, actually, I can't do that, you know. But if it's someone in your class and your peers can do it, I don't see why. Hopefully that makes them feel a bit more comfortable. And just another question, which is a really good one actually, that's coming from Bianca. How do you help students who feel embarrassed during PE and want to sit out? Is there anything specific there? And I think Trudy's asked a similar question. Those children that hate sports, what advice have you got for those teachers, Rob?
So
or for those students, sorry.
Yeah, so so this is one I find really difficult already, starting with just as a teacher coming out from uni. It's usually what I usually try to do is like really talk to them more of a personal level, because it's at the start you don't know them because you're just a teacher coming in. So usually I'll be like, you can't try to make a deal with them and be like, okay, I understand you don't want to do this activity. That's cool, right? I've got this one coming up. This is exactly what we're going to do. Now, if you could participate maybe a little bit for this, and maybe you try and do something like that. Or if they're completely unresponsive, get them to help you set up. Get them to help you try and do something on top of that, like something to help you out maybe. So it's, seeing as that you're not their teacher, it's something you have to try and like build them into, because you don't have the time. So it's just either try and get them to do 1 or 2 activities, or just get them to help you set up. So stuff like that, getting them involved.
Brilliant, thanks, Rob. I really appreciate everything you've gone through here. I'll just see if there's any more questions. Okay, all right, well, we'll come back and see if there's any questions we can go through at the end, okay? So thanks everyone for sending those questions through. Apologies if we've not been able to answer any, but we will try and get through some at the end. Now, what we are going to do now is we are moving on to the art section. So we're going to send through the poll again now and see how many of you guys are comfortable teaching art in the primary room, and let's see if there's any difference to the PE. So the time, well, I imagine 100% people are comfortable to take PE now after Rob's 3 activities, but it was 67% before that. So let's have a look now and see art. So please answer the question on whether you are comfortable at the moment taking art in primary schools. Just give you another 10 seconds or so just to get your answers in or your responses. Okay, awesome. So we'll just close it there with 77% of people voted, and let's share those results. So let's have a look. So wow, we've got a few more people confident with art, 69%. So Annie, you've only got 31% of the audience to upskill. Rob had a tougher ask of the 33%, but that's great. The 69% of you are comfortable taking art. And again, Annie's resources are so awesome. I imagine they will certainly add to your locker. And those ones that aren't comfortable taking art now, well, I imagine you'll feel like Van Gogh after the next 15 minutes. So let's go over to Annie, who is going to touch on, let me get it up on here, on her resources for art. And again, sorry, this seems to be slightly blurry. I'm not 100% certain why that's the case. If you just give me a second, I'll try and sort that out. Let me just see what's happening here. I don't know why this is the case. So thank you for your patience, everyone. Let me just present from here. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's, but if you want to open up the handout, apologies if you can't do that on the phone very easily, but if you just open up the handout, it should be able to explain it a little bit better. I'm not 100% certain why it's.
Yep. All right. Well, either way, I suppose I was part of the 31% that wasn't confident taking art initially. But I thought I'd just come up with a couple of things through whether it be asking other teachers or just whatever works with what I've got. So it's quite easily modified to cater for what cohort you're working with. So the first activity would be Wombat Stew, a classic book. You really could use any book of that similar sort of concept. So initially, this book is basically about a fox catching a wombat, and then all his friends are trying to help him not get eaten. So by adding in lots of other different things, so feathers, gum nuts, and all that sort of stuff. Classic book. So if we can just move on to the actual lesson plan, Rob. Thank you. Very blurry. Okay, that's okay. I've got this one opened up. So initially, the introduction, you'd pretty much read over the book, go through all the faunas, potentially the ingredients, what you come across, and then once that's done, you'd then go straight into the lesson, depending on time. I know that some schools do 60 minutes, and some schools might give you that double, so you can adjust accordingly. So it's a P to 2, I'd say, a lower primary sort of task. So draw up a big pot, or you can make them work in pairs, and then just go through all the different ingredients, go through different creatures. You can be as creative as you like. You might even want to take a stroll around just the front of the classroom if they've got gum nuts or any sort of natives or native fauna around. And then just ask them to create what creatures you'd add to the pot. Nice and simple. You have your list of things you need on the side, coloured paper, markers, crayons, pastels. Just be careful with paint because that can get a bit messy, and that's where I sort of, if there was a planner in place 90% of the time, I would read that and give myself enough time to clean up and pack up with paint. But if it's not in the planner, it's something that I'm a little bit careful introducing to the classroom, because the kids might not be used to using paint or anything like that, and cleaning up could be just more trouble than you really need at this point in time. So anyway, moving back onto the body of the lesson. So once that you kind of get the kids started, just make sure you roam around the classroom. What I like to do is set up music. That really helps calm them down. You can negotiate. You know, if you're worried it gets too noisy, I would turn on the music if you work quietly. But if there's indoor voice chatter, that's fine. But I need to be able to hear the music. That's something that I always use to sort of make the classroom bearable and have them sort of make sure they use their indoor voice. And then in conclusion, you sort of just do the wrap up and get them to present. You either get them to come up and put one creature on the board, if it's during the whole classroom, or if they're in pairs, just have them tell you what they've put in their pot in one sentence or in a minute. I always generally like to make it shorter, as you know, kids can keep going on and on and on, and that's not what you want when you want to wrap up in 60 minutes. So, and this one you can definitely chop and change whatever way you want to do it in. And this works as a literacy one as well, if that's ever something you think of. Next one, please, Rob.
Fantastic, Annie. So just checking now, hopefully you can see the activity a little bit better. I've tried to just upload the handout on the screen. Is that a bit better for you? Can you see that now, Annie?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So thanks for that, Annie. We'll move over to your second activity now.
Okay, the second activity is pretty much the same sort of concept, just with a different book and just more about mental health and well-being with kids, probably more 2 to 6. So this is a book that's filling a metaphorical bucket. So when you read that, you could probably talk about what fills a bucket for a kid, go through what a bucket is, what makes them happy, what's important to them, things like that. It could be things that are like physical, you know, going out, kicking a ball, having an iPad. I'm sure most kids would have that, but then also remind them, you know, being at home with family, spending time with friends, pets and things like that. So as you're reading through the book, it's nice to sort of go through things like that. We can scroll down a little bit, Rob, just to go through to the lesson plan again. Yep, so similar concept, go through, demonstrate if you need to, what fills a bucket, and you can do this as a whole class or individually with this one, because everyone has slightly different things that fill a bucket. Again, once you get the class going, have the radio going if you can. If not, then just make sure you're sort of having a chat with every other kid in the classroom. And once you bring it all back together after the lesson, this one's interesting. I would probably do something more like, if you're comfortable sharing, then share, because again, I've been to quite a few schools that have that trauma background and kids aren't necessarily prepared to share what's in their bucket. So just be mindful of that, and you'd probably be able to gauge once you're there which kids would be happily, oh yep, I'll share, and then which kids are a bit more reserved about that as well. And art, I think, well, and on the bottom, sorry, I wrote that if you do have enough time, it's always nice to sort of have a little template, have little demos, but if you don't, then just do it together with the classroom. Next one, please, Rob.
Loading a little bit better on my screen because it's not great. Not great on in the current style it's coming up on the PDF. So I'm just gonna see if I can get it working a little bit better on my screen on here. So if you just bear with me for 2 seconds. But one thing I thought was what's really great about that activity, Annie, is the fact that you can, there's so many open-ended questions you can ask kids, I suppose, when you're wandering around the classroom and just around their own bucket, I suppose, and what it is that fills those buckets. And you can really ask so many questions around there, I suppose. Personal things, their interests, and really get them thinking about, I suppose, what it is that does fill their bucket. You know, I think there's so much stuff that you can explore with the kids and make it really interesting, to make it quite unique for each child. Okay, perfect. So hopefully you can see the screen a bit better now. So we're moving on to the abstract painting and drawing.
Yeah, so this one, abstract painting, it is something that schools do have in the art curriculum, I believe. Abstract art is modern art which does not represent images of our everyday world, but has colours, lines and shapes to sort of represent things like that. This one I actually got off that website I've put in there. It is quite a hefty task. I would say if you have a longer block, it is a lot, you get a lot more out of it. But if you don't finish it, then it's something that kids can sort of bring back into the classroom or at home, or continue on next week if they're allowed to. So just flick over to the next slide, please. Okay, so this one, you pretty much would just talk about what abstract art is, bring up a couple of famous ones, Picasso if you need to, and then go through the task. So this is a get to know you game almost. So you put kids up in pairs, they can find their own partners, preferably not ones that they already play with, because they know so much about their friend. You want them to sort of have someone that's not their friend. And then what their task is to do is draw their partner by questioning. So you ask, for example, as a model, you can demonstrate and go, you ask them what their favorite sports are, what their favorite hobbies are, and things like that. So with that information, you'll draw. So if football is their favorite sport, you might want to use that as one of their eyes or one of their mouths. And then you put up another abstract facial features, and you might add something else there. Favorite animal or insect being birds or butterflies, you can use that as their ears. And if their favorite footy team is Hawthorn, you can keep that in the back of their mind and put that in their background as well. And so you might want to demonstrate this with a grey lead or whatever it is quickly, and then you may not get to the whole aligning it with a black marker and colouring it in with primary colours if you really want to make it really educational, but that's enough for them to sort of get them started with their task. So their task is it's going to be noisy, so they're going to be questioning each other. So you might even want to sort of allocate 25 minutes for them to question and quickly draw. Remember, abstract is not perfect. So for the perfectionists out there, you can just say it doesn't have to be perfect. So you might not even want to give them rubbers to use. You might just want to go, nope, go for it. And then 10 minutes to outline and whatnot. And one thing I like to do in art with the sort of conclusion is you want to give them the most time that they can use. So instead of kind of go, everyone, okay, sit down, we're going to spend 15 minutes sharing, I might just go, okay, 5 minutes to pack up, and 30 seconds, everyone hold their painting up and just hold it above their head and see what everyone's up to. And depending on what's on the plan, if it's just a one-off, like you can go, yep, take that home, bring it back, show your art teacher, or do it at recess, do it at lunch. And if it's something that you can see that, oh, I'm going to take this lesson again next week because it's a block work, then you can go, okay, next week we're going to colour it in. So unfortunately, you probably won't get all that time to do it, but it is a nice start for everyone, I think, and I hope that helps. And there's a lot of modifications you can do to all 3 lesson plans just based on what you already have in your toolkit. Oh, I can see your mouth moving, Rob.
Fantastic. I think abstract is certainly the way to go. Oh, really? Hopefully it's working a bit better now, and you can hear me now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just saying abstract art is a great way to go. Abstract is just a brilliant way to go. It can make even the worst artists like myself look a lot better than they are, because yeah, it's just, I suppose, lots of different colours, and it's not supposed to look like the real thing, which if you're not very good at art like me, the less lifelike it can look, the better. So it certainly is a really good activity to use. So if you've got any questions, please send them through. Amanda Reardon, Annie, she has said on here, that was amazing, thank you. So you've already got a bit of a fan base there, Annie, which is fantastic. Claire has said 1 point perspective is fun for all ages. That must be another art activity. And this is a good question for you, Annie, because I know you weren't obviously an art qualified teacher and you ended up doing like a long block of work in art. Samantha's asked.
Whoop, I lost you. Sorry. Can you repeat yourself, please?
Apologies. I was just saying, there's been a question from Samantha. Yep. Yeah, there's been a question from Amanda. Samantha, who has.
I missed the question.
Okay. Sorry, there must be some internet issues in my house. It seems to be the issue every single day. I'll ask it hopefully one more time, and it will work.
Okay.
Samantha has asked, "Do you need to be good at drawing?" Okay. Do you need to be good at drawing?
I just heard the first section of the question. Do you need to be good at drawing? I believe definitely not. I don't think. I mean, me and my team play Scribble, which is an online Pictionary, all the time, and I absolutely suck at drawing. You don't need to. I don't think you need to be good. I was always. I was never creative, but that's a thing. You're gonna have so many students that go, I'm not artistic, I can't draw. You're like, well, look at this, I'm still doing art. So similar to what Rob is, you could always even get students to do it and show you how it's done as well, just to get them involved. Definitely not, don't need to be an artist.
Awesome, thanks, Annie. And Gemma has mentioned on here as well, what do you think you could branch off for inspiration if you don't have a book in the classroom? Well, my advice to that, Gemma, would be always have a book with you as part of your resources. Like, have a book that you know really, really well. Mine would have been one of the Harry Potter books. So just make sure you've got that with you at all times. And what's great about having a book with you that you know really well is literally you can almost create a lesson from anything. Like it could be literacy, you could do like a character description, you could draw the character from my description here, like this. If you know a book really well, and you can almost put those little post-it notes in that you could just quickly go to for different lessons. I think they're one of your best resources, having a book that you know and taking it with you all the time. Hopefully the technical and the audio issues have ceased now, but I don't know if they have. Anyhow, thanks so much, Annie. If you've got any more questions, please send them through. All right. So I'm going to finally go over to Sarah in a second, but before that, we will have our third and final poll. So I know I haven't done the poll to find out whether people are now comfortable with PE and art, but I imagine both of those would be 100%. Let's see how many people are comfortable teaching performing arts. Now, I actually think this one is likely to be lower, purely because a lot of people find music and performing in front of people a little more daunting. But I might be wrong here, so I'm just going to launch the poll and see what the answers are. So we had 57% of people voted, and we actually had no 60%. So my prediction was correct. I'm very proud of that one. So yeah, a lot of people aren't comfortable teaching performing arts in primary schools. Well, I believe now, after Sarah's description of a few activities, we'll have many budding Leo DiCaprios and Julia Roberts is in our classroom. Okay, so I'm just going to hide those results, and we're going to go back over to Sarah, who's going to go through her first activity. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. I hope these inspire some people and they feel comfortable to use these lessons. I have found that most of my call outs as an emergency teacher for performing arts, a lot of the times it is for music, because a lot of schools they say we have a performing arts program, but it's more music based. So just letting you know that. So so that the first lesson that I'm going to share with you is a singing game. It's a singing circle game, and there's a lot of these on the internet. So the reason why I picked this particular one is because it's simple, and it's a singing game that you can use across all year levels. There are more fun ones for particular age groups, but if singing games is something that you think that you would be interested in doing, there are lots of ideas on the internet, and I'll also share some resources during this section of where you could find some more singing games. But this one's it's from grade prep to 6 with some variations. So button you must under. I'm going to get Rob to share a link now to a variation for the grade 5/6s, and you get to hear the song, you get to see the game. Yeah, so Rob, so you only need to see 1 minute. You get to see the entirety, 1:27 actually. So if you can please YouTube click and they can see the game in action. The song.
Awesome. Yeah. So what I've done, I'm going to try and share the video with everyone now, but I have also put it in the chat. So if you want to click on the link that's in the chat, because sometimes the video doesn't always work that well. So if you want to click on that link and just come back in a minute or so, I'm just going to share it as well. Hopefully it works well. But I'm sharing it on the screen in a second, so you should be able to see it. But yeah, feel free to click the link separately, and we'll just watch a minute of the Button You Must Wander video. So. Sadly, I still seem to be having major internet issues over here. Give me 2 seconds.
Oh no.
Apologies, we've got 2 of us using the same Wi-Fi connection, so that's probably slowed it down somewhat. Should have put some things in place beforehand, but let's see if we can get this working. That's awesome, Sarah. I was sorry, I probably showed that a bit too long, but I was very intrigued to find out whether he guessed the right answer or not. And the song was actually I hadn't heard the song before. I tried to sing a version earlier, and it was nothing like that one. That is a much nicer version than the one I was trying to sing earlier. So let's go back to sharing the main screen. So is that everything you wanted to share on the Button You Must Wander game?
Hello?
Is that everything you wanted to share on the Button You Must Wander activity, Sarah?
Yep. So I just wanted, it was just easier to see a
Awesome.
visual.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Hopefully everyone was able to. Yeah, awesome. Made a lot of sense, the video on how to use that. A good fun game. Cool. So
Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. All right. So I've got a couple. This is a button. So I've always got a button. This is actually a cool music one that I use for performing arts. It's a button. So they're just my buttons. As I said, there's lots of singing games on the internet. I really like this. Students, they just pass the button around until they've finished singing the song, and then they all pretend they've got the button, and the person in the middle has to guess who has the button. And that will take up quite a bit of the lesson. But when you are teaching a singing game, I have been told in PDs, and I do this now myself, it's a lot easier. I always teach the words first without the melody. So it's a lot easier to do that. So I'll just model it now for you anyway. For button, you must wonder, I'll always teach the words to a beat, and the students repeat it back to me. So I'll just model that now. So I'll say to the students, repeat after me. Button you must wonder, button you must wonder everywhere. And then I'll get the kids to repeat it back to me without any melody. It sort of breaks the ice a little bit for students, because if we just go straight into button you must wonder, you'll get some kids feeling a little bit embarrassed sometimes. Particularly if singing isn't a big part of their culture at the school. So I teach the words first to a beat, and they just echo it back to me. So and they can repeat them back to me. I then put the melody, as I said. So then I would get them to echo. If you think the students will be comfortable to sing, I would then model and get them to echo. Button you must wonder, 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 and then I'll get them to echo it back to me. Once you think that they've got the song, you are ready to go into the circle, and then I explain the game. But as you saw in the video, the kids already knew the song, so the kids would have been taught the song beforehand, and then you get into the circle. With the older kids, grade 5, 6s, if I think they might be a little bit shy to actually sing, I'll just teach them the words, and then we just get into the circle, start the game, and I just start singing it. And I find just, after a couple of times, the kids will start singing with me, and then I'll stop singing after maybe a few rounds, and then I'll say, I'm not singing anymore, now it's your turn. So then they've just learnt it just as we're playing the game. So that's Button You Must Wonder. I got that from this book, Beginning Circle Games. There's a whole heap, as you see. Small, some of them require kids to run around the circle or to learn more words. But that was the one I showed you was just a really simple one that you can use with all ages. This is a great resource, and as you can see, I've got quite a few little bookmarks. Grizzly Bear is a really fun one for the grade 3, 4s. But yeah, this is a great resource which I'll share at the end. And for the middle years, this is another big book called Total Fun, and this is all for middle year, sort of partner games, singing games, lots of dynamic ones there. But yeah, so I'll share those resources. So that's the music one. Lots of singing games, as I said, on the net. I have found Button You Must Wonder just really simple, and it's just always worked. I've even used it as a fill-in just during classroom teaching at the end of the day with younger kids. Let's all get together at the end of the day, let's play a little game, and they seem to like that. It's sort of beyond the doggy who's got the bone, I guess. So that's the music one. Yeah, and I encourage you to look up other games. Tideo, actually, I'm not sure if that's somewhere in the notes, but Tideo is probably the one that I would do with 5/6s. It's a really fun one. So if you look up Tideo, I think there's a link, Rob, in notes at the end or something, where kids use cups and they do fun things with cups, and they have to do it to the beat, and they do it around the circle. But Tideo, I definitely recommend people to look up for the older kids.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's the music one. After kids have that, yep. Oh. Everything, yeah. So if kids have been doing a lot of sitting for a music lesson, this is one that I tend to do most effective. It's very similar to Rhythm Detective, or that game where there's someone in the middle and they have to try and guess who the leader is, and they're just doing various simple actions. This one's Dance Detective, where there's a leader in the circle who's leading dance movements, and so you have a detective who leaves the room or puts on a mask. I've got masks that I always use. I got this from eBay, actually. They're like $9, and the kids love. I think it's really cool. So the leader puts on a mask, and oh no, so not the leader, the detective, and you choose a leader, and you put on some music. Now, one thing I always have in my bag for performing arts, even for classroom teaching, actually, I bring my own boombox speaker. It's a Bluetooth speaker. I remember years ago when, before Bluetooth, sometimes it was a nightmare trying to work out how to use a sound system in a class, in a music room, or sometimes they had crackly cables and it was just a nightmare. And I used to sometimes think, oh, I hope the sound system works at this school. So now I just take my own. This is my Bluetooth speaker, and on my iPad, I have my own playlists. I have dance ones, a whole range of songs for them to sing. So this is something that I just always have in my bag. They're a good investment. So I always feel confident to walk into a room to do performing arts when I've got my own speaker and my own music. So yeah, so that can relieve a lot of anxiety. So for Dance Detective, have some music. The leader starts doing some dance moves, and the detective comes in and has to get them to stand in the middle of the circle, though, because then they have to turn their back to the leader sometimes, and that's an opportunity for the leader to then change their dance moves. I did note, make sure if you play this game that that the leader does dance movements where they stay on their feet. So there's no cartwheels and flips, because you might get some kicks in the air and some people, it's not very safe. So always make sure you say that rule, because sometimes some children want to do break dance moves, which are really cool, but when kids are in a circle, it's not very safe. So yeah, so Dance Detective is a really fun game with kids.
What would
talk about peripheral vision as well.
What would be your go-to dance move, Sarah?
Oh,
what would be your go-to dance move?
I just, you mean when I model being the leader?
Yeah,
I tend to do just silly
70s,
things.
I reckon.
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to do I just do simple, silly ones.
Yeah, I would think I'd go 70s disco. What about you, Annie? What would be yours?
It'll be something extremely daggy, and it'll probably be a similar like finger thing.
the daggier the better. Actually, it's funny when you're modeling it and you do really daggy moves, the kids will laugh, and they think they've got cooler moves than you to show. Sorry. Oh, toolkits. Oh, have I got my drama time? Oh, my drama one. Yeah. So 1 Minute Fairy Tales is my drama lesson that I go to. you just need a simple fairy tale. You can have a book. I have an audio recording. I tend to go to the Three Little Pigs because it's a very simple story. I play an audio recording that I have on my iPad, and it's kind of like an old English one with sound effects, and the kids laugh while they're listening to it. They've got funny voices and things. So it's just like a 5-minute story. The kids listen to it, and then I write up on the board the main points of the story, the things that happen. So Three Little Pigs, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Little Red Riding Hood, they're really good. They're probably really simple fairy tales you can choose from. And the kids then, their task is in groups, small groups, no more than 4, or actually it depends on how many characters in the story actually. They have to then create a mime performance of the fairy tale, and they must perform it in 1 minute. So that's what they must plan for during the lesson. A mime, just in case you're not sure, is where you act without any vocal sounds. So you have to tell the story through movement. When I do drama lessons as a CRT, I tend to do mime lessons because the class is a lot quieter. And then you've got a bit more control of the class as well, and the kids are just focusing on their movements. So so with this particular lesson, I do always have music in the background though, so it plays, so their act is a mime and there's music in the background just to create a bit of atmosphere. I usually choose something really upbeat. This should be lined up actually. This is the one that I play for the Three Little Pigs actually. Here it is. Hopefully you can hear it. Where is it? Can you hear that? It's kind of silly. It's fast moving. So that's if you're going to do a lesson like this, I would always recommend find some backing tracks with no vocals in it as a backing track, and it gets the kids moving and feeling energetic. And I only give the kids about 10 minutes to practice their performance. If you say to them, you got 10 minutes, they're like, oh, and so they quickly start. Really, they've only got 10 minutes and everyone is performing, is what I say. And so, yeah, it's a really quick lesson. It's fun. Say, I'm going to time you in 5 minutes. And they're like, oh my God. So I get them to stop after 10 minutes, and then I time them. I say starting positions. All the kids get into their starting positions, and I play the music, and they do it for the minute. I stop it. Hands up who's performance was too long, too short, just on time. I give them another chance to retweak their performances, and then they perform it to the class. If it's an hour lesson for planning their 1 minute fairy tale, I do ask the students with their group to show me photos of scenes from the story. So Three Little Pigs, maybe when the pigs are all building their houses, like all the pigs, show me a freeze photo of that part of the story. What happens at the end, show me a freeze photo of that. So if there's time, I also include that in the lesson, which I didn't put in the lesson plan. But at the end of the lesson, all the groups share their performances. I find most kids will want to perform. Just on the point with sport, the kids who don't want to do sport, that sometimes happens in performing arts. For children who really feel self-conscious to perform in front of the students and they get anxiety, I usually tell them to be the director for a group. And they usually like helping with stage positioning, making sure that kids are using facial expressions for a group. So yeah, so giving students who are anxious to perform in front of the class, give them a director's role in a group, or to be a standing tree or part of the story. They can be a structure in the story. I also get them, that's another idea I do as well. So anyway, that's a really fun lesson. Pick a fairy tale that you like, that you're excited to tell, and that's really simple. So yeah, that's 1 minute fairy tales must be performed in 1 minute. Yep. So I think that's it. And now
Brilliant,
my
Sarah.
resources,
Thank
is
you.
that what I'm up to? I think. Yep. So other
Yep,
resources
absolutely.
I have, I've always got my mask and, oh, am I speaking? Yep. And just quickly, as you can see, this is very old. This has got heaps of ideas. improvisations. It's called the Drama Ideas Bank. It's very old. I've had it for about 10 years. It's got scripts in it, like little short scripts, script starters, and the kids have to complete the script, well, improvise what happens. There's just so many ideas in here that this was just my Bible for years, and I still use it. And I've also got Start Singing action songs. They're really good for the younger kids, and there's an accompany one for dance as well. So these are kind of things I just always have in my bag, and they're fun to whip out for the just classroom teaching as well. Just if you're a generalist, I use these as well. Yeah, and just another quick thing, which I also do for drama. I've got envelopes, and this is if you've got like 5 minutes to plan a lesson, the kids are coming in, nothing's been planned, you think, oh my god, what am I going to do? This is envelope with objects, setting, characters, and I tell the kids they'll sit on the floor, and I say I'm going to pick one from each envelope, and you're going to create a story with a wolf in it. That's one of the characters. The setting is, I've just cut up a whole heap of settings in this envelope. There must be an enchanted forest in this story, and then the object. So I've got a whole heap of different objects in here that I've cut out, and cooking pot. And then the kids in groups have to create some sort of drama play that's set in there must be an enchanted forest, a wolf, and a cooking pot, and that always works as well. So this is a really great thing to have set up if you just want to be able to walk into a performing arts lesson and just off you go. The kids get excited. They love performing and planning with their friends. So that was just another quick thing I added in as well. Yeah, so that's it from me, I think.
That was absolutely awesome, Sarah, and I love the idea, particularly those ones with the envelopes at the end. In terms of, I suppose it helps children be creative when you've got 3 random things and you've got to link them all. But really, really in-depth resources there that I think were fantastic. There was we've had a couple of questions around. Because often subject specialist lessons seem to be, or days when you're being a casual leave teacher, do tend to be the days that maybe planning isn't left for you, because obviously if you're in a school where there's like 2 or 3 grade 3 teachers, well, that teacher who's away can be covered, or work can be planned by the other grade 3 teachers. But if it's your performing arts or your music teacher, there's no one else there to do those, to provide that work for you. So that's where I think Ray mentioned, what's great about these resources is it's just having them so clear in your head, and then just being able to adapt them to and differentiate them with the different year levels. That's just a really important thing. And again, you might be making it too challenging for them, or then quickly go, all right, well, this is a bit more difficult. How can I make it slightly easier so more children can access the work? So I thought those ideas were fantastic, Sarah, and yeah, they're all obviously going to be in the handout that you can all download. That is also on this GoToWebinar, and I think they get emailed to you afterwards as well. I'll just see if there's any other questions at all. Holly's asked if you can get a list of the items that are in your envelope, but I suppose literally you can just choose anything. Just choose like 20 nouns, 20 locations, and 20 settings. I guess it's random, I suppose, isn't it? That's the whole point of it, that you just create stories from nowhere.
This one actually was from a resource I photocopied from a primary school like about 12 years ago, so I can't remember the resource. I've got another one for older kids as well, but yeah, you could make it up. Yeah, so this one's a fairy tale theme. These 3 envelopes are fairy tales, and I've also got one for older kids. I don't know where I got this from, but you could make it up. This one's got time, so different times of the day, like midnight, at the strike of midnight. This is set during the day, in the morning. Yeah, so the older kids tend to do this one. So, but I'm not sure where I got them from. Event, a character, and a place. So yeah, but I can't remember where I got them from. That's why I didn't focus on this for my webinar today.
Awesome. All right, well, that really was outstanding, Sarah. There was just, so apologies, I know we've had a couple of technical issues with some of Sarah's audio, but hopefully most of the messages were sent through, and obviously those handouts will be available to you. There was one other thing I just wanted to ask you, actually. A couple of people have been really thankful for the idea about taking your own personal speaker with you. That does make a big difference. But someone did ask this question as well. What would be your suggestion for any teacher who's not confident in singing? What would be your advice to someone if you're doing a music-based lesson, if you're not very good at singing?
Yeah, but I was going to actually, I thought about that actually when I saw the poll. So with the singing games, I guess you could do that game without the melody in the song. So you could sort of do it as a rap. So button, you must wonder, 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 button, without, or you could just put a couple of notes in there. So button, you must wonder. Oh, yeah, you could simplify the melody, I suppose, or just not, or just do it as like a bit of wonder, button, you must wonder everywhere. I guess you could do that. It was quite hard. It was challenging to try to find some music lessons that someone could do for a music class that doesn't require you to know about rhythmic values, things like that. And every music classroom is different as well, because sometimes there's hardly any musical instruments. Some of them have lots of instruments. So I've tried to think of something where you don't need any resources and not a lot of space. But yeah, so I would say for the singing games, you could just rap out the song instead of sing it with melody. I don't know if that would work.
Fantastic. Awesome, Sarah.
Or find
And
a song you like.
Yeah, and other people have mentioned things like clapping and those sorts of things you can do for music. But awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much. You obviously know your stuff when it comes to performing arts, music, and drama. So that was absolutely brilliant. Okay, so we are just going to move on to, we've already gone through the questions. So just see if anyone would like to share their own resources. I'm going to actually go to Samantha Prim. She's got a hand up, so we'll see whether she actually wants to talk, but we'll unmute you, Samantha, and see if there's any resources you'd like to share. And if anyone else would like to share any resources quickly with the group, please just put your hand up now and I'll come to you in a second.
Okay,
Samantha,
so
there?
Sarah, yes, I am. Can you hear me? Okay, so instead of your envelope, Sarah, I have these great resources called story cubes, and I take them with me every time I do a performing art lesson. I'm not performing art trained, but I do quite a lot of performing art lessons, and I found that the story cubes, they're basically dice with images on them, and the kids always remember the lessons that I've done with the story cubes.
Now I can't hear you.
Oh.
I heard you
now?
fine. I think Sarah's got some, I think there's some internet issues for Sarah, but we could hear you, Samantha, yeah.
Yeah, so the resources, they're called story cubes, and if you Google story cubes, you can find them in a lot of places.
So if you type in story cubes, Samantha, you were able to find them online, and basically
Yeah,
you just like sort of roll them like, you roll them like dice almost, and it comes up with different,
they exactly look like dice, but instead of numbers, they've got images on them.
Fantastic. That's awesome, Samantha. Thanks very much. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Very much appreciated, and hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. I'm going to go to Marguerite. So Marguerite, we'll see if you're there and are happy to share something now. Marguerite, are you there? I've unmuted you, but it doesn't seem like you've got a microphone. So we'll give it another couple of seconds. Now we will leave it there. All right, so I'll leave that there. Okay, awesome. All right. So just before we finish up today, I just wanted to let you know about a special needs webinar that we're running on Thursday. That's after school on the 28th this week at 5 p.m, which will be about teaching in special needs schools. So again, hopefully you might have some experience or might be comfortable doing that already, but this will hopefully give you a few more ideas and prepare you a little bit more for it going in the future. And if you've had no experience of special needs schools, it's a great introduction. And the amount of teachers I've worked with in my time here that had no experience in special needs schools, but ended up giving it a go and ended up working and getting jobs in those schools. It's absolutely huge. So certainly well worth keeping an eye on and enrolling on that on Thursday. If you just go to the anzuk events page, that will be on there. Now, just before we go, thank you to everyone for attending, but a massive main thank you has to go to Sarah, Rob, and Annie for sharing their resources today. Sarah and Rob in particular have taken time out of I wouldn't say busy schedule at the moment because no schools are working, but certainly time out of their schedule recently to come up with 3 resources and deliver them to everyone here, which it's not an easy task to do. It's quite a nerve-wracking thing. There's over 150 people here, and I just want to say thank you so much. It really was. It's massive for us for you to go and do something like that. It will help. The feedback we're having through the answer section here, of people are finding the resources so useful. So we really do appreciate the work you've done for that. And Annie, that's not to take away anything from you as well. Your stuff was awesome as well. But you work in the office, so sort of expected of you. So yeah, so thank you, Sarah and Rob and Annie. That was absolutely outstanding. And just to finish up as well, just when you finish and leave the survey leave the webinar today, there's a little short survey for you to complete if you can. So it will have a few questions about how useful you found today's webinar, if you're feeling more confident in teaching certain subjects now. If you do feel confident, make sure you tell your consultant and let them know, because that way they might be able to find some additional work for you in those quieter times. So if you weren't comfortable taking PE, but now, do you know what, I'm happy to give it a go, let your consultant know, because it certainly will increase the work opportunities for you. And yeah, the survey will hopefully give us ideas and things to do that we can improve next time. I know there's been a few technical issues today, so apologies for that. Obviously something we're still learning and still getting better at. But yeah, just a big thank you for everyone attending. If you can give us some feedback in the survey, that'd be great. But again, thank you, Annie, Sarah, and Rob. Great webinar. Really enjoyed everything you had to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.